If we really want to level up, Mr. Speaker, we have to unleash the power of the private sector.
UK Prime Minister Liz Truss's battle for economic growth has begun with a plan that centres around three central priorities announced by her new Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng.
Reforming the supply side of the economy, maintaining a responsible approach to public finance, and cutting taxes to boost growth.
Billed as a, quote, mini-budget, it's a pro-growth agenda that's very different from the tax and spend Keynesianism that has dominated the West's economic policies for nearly 2 decades.
It is an important principle that people should keep more of the money they earn. And it is good policy, Mr. Speaker, to boost the incentives for work and enterprise.
Income tax was cut.
We'll cut the basic rate of income tax to 19 pence in April 2023.
As was stamp duty, which is the tax paid when buying a new home. Mr. Kwarteng also axed the 2.5 percentage point increase in the payroll tax imposed by former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and cancelled a planned increase in corporate tax.
The tax rate will not rise to 25%. It will remain at 19%, and we will have the lowest rate of corporation tax in the G20.
The Chancellor also eliminated the 45% tax rate on personal incomes above £150,000.
At 45%, it is currently higher than the headline top rate in G7 countries like the US and Italy. I'm going to abolish it altogether. From April the 23rd, we will have a single higher rate of income tax of 40%.
Now, these are obviously just some of the highlights of what was unveiled, and it's worth reading the plans for yourself. But they do demonstrate that Ms. Truss is the only leader willing to abandon a stale Keynesian policy consensus that has produced stagflation everywhere.
For too long in this country, we've indulged in a fight over redistribution. Now we need to focus on growth, not just how we tax and spend.
Ms. Truss and Mr. Kwarteng believe a chronic shortfall in investment explains Britain's economic struggle over the past decade, and they think previous Tory governments didn't do enough to unlock the productivity-boosting investment that Britain needs. They're promising to use the 2 years before the next election to change course.
Our aim over the medium term is to reach a trend rate of growth of 2.5%. And our plan, Mr. Speaker, is to expand the supply side of the economy through tax incentives and reform.
Suffice to say, most British commentators' response is reflected by the country's opposition Labour Party.
It's all based on an outdated ideology that says if we simply reward those who are already wealthy, the whole of society will benefit.
Amusingly, the Shadow Chancellor then drew on Joe Biden's economic thinking to make her point.
As President Biden said this week, he is sick and tired of trickle-down economics. And he is right to be. It is discredited, it is inadequate, and it will not unleash the wave of investment that we need.
Ms. Reeves, much like the Liberal commentariat, misses the point. Britain doesn't need a Keynesian demand-side stimulus. It needs the supply-side jolt that Ms. Truss is trying to deliver by changing incentives to work and invest.
We have to reiterate very clearly to our friends on the opposite benches that you cannot tax your way to prosperity.